Thanks to our beautiful waterways, recreational boating is extremely popular here in Charleston. However, as a major port city, our waters are also busy with commercial vessels. With the increase in traffic, emergencies are more likely to happen. Here to discuss what to do if we find ourselves in a boating emergency are Lieutenant Michael Allen, Incident Management Division Chief for the U.S. Coast Guard Sector Charleston, and Scott Szczepaniack, Recreational Boating Safety Specialist for the U.S. Coast Guard 7th District. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And Michael, when we're talking about boating emergencies, do we see them more often in commercial ports?
It's not so much that they're more often, but they can definitely be more severe. With the average size of commercial traffic being much larger than your average recreational vessel, the potential for severe impacts and more drownings, more injuries are always there. It's kind of like a train and a car versus a car and a car.
Yeah. Is the most common type of boating emergency, is it collisions that we see?
People are getting into boating, recreational boating incidents. They're running into each other. They're running into things like bridges and aids to navigation, and they're running into the bottom at high speed. And so the boat stops suddenly and the passengers potentially go flying out of the boat. So we're certainly asking folks, the best way to avoid the incident is to be aware of your surroundings, to slow down and keep a good lookout, and here in the ports, stay away from the larger commercial traffics.
When we're talking about, these boating emergencies and fatalities, how are we looking at, as a state in South Carolina, do we have a high amount of fatalities with boating incidents?
Unfortunately, South Carolina is about 4th in the nation with incidents and fatalities. It fluctuates year by year. Unfortunately, there were 23 fatalities in 2023. Part of the reason that we have a higher rate is because of our climate. So people in New England aren't boating year round like we're here boating in the South Carolina. But our aim is to reduce those fatalities and those incidents and accidents.
Mm-hmm. And now there are rules and guidelines set in place, and do they differ when you're boating in a commercial port versus when you're not?
So the rules of the road or rules for navigating are pretty much universal rules. Anyone can pretty much do a web search and you can find the navigational rules. The Coast Guard actually does have there's a manual, there's a publication out there for the rules of the road and navigational rules. And those are pretty much, as I said, universal across the waterways. And that way, once people become aware of them, learn those rules, they're gonna be much safer on the water because everybody should be following the same rules.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us a gist of what some of those rules are?
For instance, actually what applies perfectly to a commercial port is that a draft restricted vessel will have the right of way over a non-draft restricted vessel. So for instance, a large commercial vessel that is maintaining its course in a channel is required to be in that channel. They can't go outside of that channel just because of the draft. They'll become stuck and cause even more problems. Whereas a regular recreational boat, not limited by draft, which is the part of the vessel that's underwater, they can kind of navigate freely however they would like to. So if there is a situation where a draft restricted vessel and a commercial vessel of less draft is approaching each other, that recreational vessel needs to give way to the commercial vessel. Otherwise, it's kind of, like I said, playing chicken with a train. Yeah. It's not really going to end well.
Yeah. So in a situation of if we were to find ourselves in a boating emergency or possibly an incoming incident that we may see on the horizon, what do we do?
Biggest thing is to be aware of the surroundings. The situations, they change very, very rapidly out there, and whether that's from weather or situationally. I mean, obviously we just recently had the vessel that was unable to control its throttle on the way out of the Charleston harbor, and that's nothing that anyone is necessarily expecting to happen. But being aware of your surroundings, listening to Channel 16 for broadcasts to go out, monitoring the weather, those are the sorts of things can help you to be safe on the water when the situation does change.
Mm-hmm. And so how do we contact the Coast Guard if we're in need?
So you can contact the Coast Guard on Channel 16, VHF Channel 16. as well as if you're near shore, you can use your phone, 911, that usually contacts local dispatch, and then they can make contact with the Coast Guard and we can get assets dispatched.
And now if boaters want to feel a little bit more comfortable before going out on the water this season, is there a place they can go to find more information?
Sure. The Coast Guard website, we've got partners with the National Safe Boating Council, the Coast Guard Auxiliary, the United States Power Squadron. Just like we all learn to drive a car by taking a class and driving under supervision, getting some classroom training to learn to be a safe and prepared boater.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining us and talking about such an important topic.
Of course.
Hey, it's our pleasure to be here.
We're back after this.